Welcome back, everyone, to today's presentation. Today's event is brought to you by AITP LA, and I wanted to take a moment to introduce and thank our board members who are providing exciting programs for you. We do have some members present today at this event. I think you already heard from Roger and also from Vivek and also from Jay. And we at AITP LA are focused on providing informative events for our audience. So before we start with the actual event, I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about AITP, what we do, because I know I heard some people who are new to AITP. So Association of Information Technology Professionals is a nonprofit organization. It provides leadership and professional development opportunity to IT professionals. Our mission is to keep members informed of cutting edge trends and best practices in managing leadership and technology, as well as to provide strong networking opportunities. This chapter membership provides many benefits. It's a community of IT professionals, and it's about technology, bringing experts in their field to share cutting edge ideas. It's also about people, bringing together people to foster innovation and build professional networks. We do regular meetings, either virtual or in person, to help our members stay up to date with the latest trends and best practices in managing technology. If you're interested, you can get more information on our website, which is aitpla.org, or you can also email us on info@aitpla.org. So let's just cover a few logistics before we start the presentation. Please mute yourself so that we can hear our speakers. You'll get an opportunity to ask questions towards the end. You can post your questions either in the chat or you can ask yourself towards the end. We'll have time for question answer session. And feel free to use private chat or chat for everyone to discuss ideas or your thoughts. And this meeting is going to be recorded, and we're going to put our recording on AITP website in next few days. So today we have two speakers with us. We have Ragav Gopalan and Dave Goel. Our third speaker, Himani Bhagi, she was not able to make it today due to health concerns. We hope that she'll be able to make it in one of our future meetings. But I'm going to start with Ragav. So welcome, Ragav, and we're very fortunate to have you speak at this event. Ragav has over 18 years of data and analytics transformation experience. Ragav is a passionate technology leader with a wealth of knowledge in various industries. He is highly successful in creating vision, identifying opportunities, and effectively implementing innovative solutions in the areas of data analytics, data engineering, data governance, master data management, data quality, and reporting solutions. So today, Ragav is going to be talking about data structure, data management, data governance, and AI governance. So over to you, Ragav.
Thank you, Neelu. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this event. Let me see if I can share my screen. Perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Neelu. Again, my name is Ragav Gopalan. I have more than 23 years of experience in IT leadership and consulting roles. Most of my career was spent in developing data strategy, implementing data governance, data management, and data projects in various Fortune 500 companies. Again, recently I've been been fascinated by AI area, and who is not, by the way, and started to extend my expertise and services and education more on the AI side. And today I'm going to be talking about the AI governance mostly with some background. We put it in the presentation mode, so it'll be a little easier to follow the font. 1 second, please. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So if I remember correctly, about 3 or 4 years ago, Gartner published a chart saying that, by 2023, by this year, on an average, every company will have 30 to 35 AI projects implemented or being built. And I think we're not there yet, but there's still a significant growth in AI projects across several industries. I'm seeing that traditional companies are focusing or investing in AI projects to optimize or improve their operations, while the digital native companies like Uber or Airbnb, Amazon on the world, they are investing in AI technologies to transform their business model or adding new line of business to their existing model. So depending on who you talk to, there's a different applications of AI and technologies coming along. And as much optimism and excitement that we see in AI projects in enterprise, there's also an equal amount of skepticism and concerns. And some of you already mentioned it in the pre-meeting here. So the concerns is all about the lack of trust in the AI models. There's a lack of transparency there, fear of job elimination, in fairness and accountability of these AI decisions and recommendations. And then you have different government institutions pushing heavily on regulations and mandates on AI solutions. So it's all over the place a little bit. And I think about it. If you have, I mean, this might be a right time to start thinking about AI governance because of all these concerns, because of the situation. While this AI industry is being pretty nascent, budding, and having a strong governance around it would ensure address some of these concerns. At the same time, pave a good way to get the real value and benefit out of AI. And I kind of recollect from my experience 20 years ago, like back in 2000s, there was a huge explosion of investments in data analytics and BI and data warehouse solutions. Data governance was not even considered. It was like an afterthought. After several years into investing into data, analytic solutions, it became too complex to manage and trust. And then companies started to invest on data governance. And now most of the companies have data governance, some shape or form of data governance program. But I wish they started a little earlier. And I wanted to take that lesson and see if we can start thinking about AI governance now. Isn't it the right time to do it, considering a lot of uncertainty, concerns around the way the AI is being implemented and models are being published? So that's the topic of my meeting today. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what data governance or AI governance is, why is it important, especially in the enterprise world, and how to even start this AI governance in your enterprise or your organization. So that's my goal. Like Neela said, feel free to add on your questions, put it on the WebEx chat, or we can discuss at the end of this meeting. So at a very high level, I'm sure everyone is familiar with the concept of data management. It's all about effectively managing your organization's data, whether it is collection of data or structuring it or securing the data and accessing it at different points. Whatever critical data that might be within the organization. It could be master data, transaction data, social media or IoT data, anything and everything that you want to put a structure around it so you can effectively manage it and use it. And that was the goal of data management practice. And then, about 10 to 15 years ago, data governance, took that to a different level. Hey, in addition to, managing it effectively, we need to have some decision rights. We need to have some ownership. There should be a set of people who should review any data sets that are being used within the organization, and then review it, approve it, whether it is good enough for the consumption of the organization, and then put some accountabilities, ownerships, best practices, and standards around it, all with the goal of improving the quality of data, the availability and usability, and without compromising on the security of the data sets. So that was data governance, and it's been humming along pretty well. Now with the AI models and AI solutions are being put in place, your traditional data governance is no longer enough because AI goes too far into different areas that the traditional data governance can't even cope up with. But you still need the data governance to address some of the information because AI models are relying heavily on huge volume of data. So end of the day, you still need to have a proper governance for your data. But then you also need to start thinking about whether your AI solutions are built and leveraged in a responsible way. Is it fair? Are there ethical guidelines there? Is it transparent? And there are any safety concerns that need to be addressed. So there's so many other dynamics associated with the AI governance that your traditional data governance is not ready to handle that. And I see the pillars of AI governance. You're going to have this traditional methodologies, best practices, standards for responsible AI in your organization. On top of that, you need to have ethical guardrails put in place to make sure it's fair. There's some accountability there. There's some transparency there, and safety, whether it is privacy or legal risks. And then risk management is a critical piece as well. And finally, regulatory compliance, like I mentioned earlier, government is also, tightening their regulations and rules on how AI should function. So, above all, if you are not thinking about it, if you're not starting AI governance program within your entity, it might be too late or too little if you think about it down the road. And again, I want to reemphasize the fact that AI governance is not AI regulation. There's some other entity who do that. But within our organization, we need to make sure the governance is put in place. And I will add it with the caveat, even though AI governance is relatively a new concept, there's a limited experience, expertise around it. Even the software vendors and tools are not ready yet. They're adding a lot of capabilities, but no way close to the ideal state where you want to be. So you always need to start small, be ready to be flexible, adjust it as you go along. And as technologies mature, more and more use cases, more and more implementations happen, you'll have a much better way of getting a good handle on that. But at least we got to start somewhere. That's my goal. Okay. Why AI governance is important in an organization? Like I mentioned earlier, transparency is a crucial piece. One of the biggest concerns in the organization of AI models is that there's a lack of trust, even among the employees or the business users that are supposed to be using this. They're not confident about it, mostly because they don't know what is going on. It's like a black box. So the best place to start would be to clearly document the AI models, the input parameters, the decisions that went in, and why AI has made a decision. Someone should be able to explain it. Given the input parameters, given these criteria, this is why the AI solutions made the decision. So there's got to be some kind of a transparency around it to address this the trust-related concerns, and that's the primary goal of this AI governance. I would say the critical aspect of this AI governance, in my opinion. I'll go through this in a clockwise direction so that the way you can follow it. So the other piece is accuracy of data, and as you know, that AI models use this huge volume of data and requires high quality of data, and having a solid data governance framework, augmenting the existing program would be a best way to start it, without having to reinvent the wheel. And the other problem with accuracy of data is that AI has the potential to amplify the negative aspects of data quality. If humans make an error based on the erroneous data, that might have a limited effect or impact on it. But if AI is making a decision based on poor quality of data, it could affect millions of decisions. So you need to be extremely careful about the accuracy and quality of data. The other problem with the quality of data is that cost of training or retraining the LLMs, the large language models. So that is extremely important because if you don't have good quality of data, if you don't have a good handle of your data, you're going to be spinning a lot of wheels in perfecting the LLMs that you are building as part of the model. The other area that I'm thinking is inaccurate recommendations. This is something that having a solid governance program will address it, or at least reduce the inaccurate recommendations. AI is not perfect. I know most of you talked about it. There's always going to be a percentage of error, whether it is 2% or 3%, whatever it is. There's always going to be an error percentage that you need to keep in mind, account for that. But as long as you doesn't affect your decision-making process. As long as you reduce the inaccurate recommendations and thereby the decisions that you're making, then it should be good. And that's where the governance would come in the picture to clearly articulate it, clearly document it, in what areas you can 100% trust AI decisions, and what areas you should be, taking into the pinch of salt. So that's something that need to be considered. The other important piece is the security and privacy risks, because AI has the potential to pull different sorts of information. AI or sensitive or other data sets. You need to have clear set of standards and processes to make sure that AI models give the right level of respect to the secured or confidential data. To some extent, data governance would address that piece, but whatever is not considered needs to be considered in the AI governance. The other important aspect is the legal and regulatory mandates. Like I mentioned earlier, government institutions are going to constantly come up with a new sets of rules and regulations in a short notice. And if your governance program is not keeping up with those mandates, you would be paying in hefty fines and legal issues and things like that. So the traditional or the AI team, the development team or the core team, they may not be thinking about all those things because their main focus area is to deliver value out of those AI model. But the governance program will have to sit on top of it and ensure that these mandates are considered and the solution is compliant. The other biggest area that AI models pose is the ethical issues. Unless we have a strong guardrails around these ethical issues, ensuring that the data that's being processed by the models, because when you think about it, AI is going to get a huge amount of data, sometimes biased data, sometimes skewed, sometimes prejudicial data, depending on where it got collected from, the demographics, the country, the culture. It could all play a role in the decisions that AI is making. So unless you have a strong ethical guardrail or guideline to make sure that, okay, in these certain situations, you cannot really recommend this option or solution. Those are some of the things that you cannot really program every possible aspect. But having a governance would address this, because if we don't do it, it would pretty much affect the ethical values of an organization, and let alone losing reputation among the customer base. So that's extremely important to keep that in mind. And finally, most of you know about the responsible AI. There's also trustworthy AI being around there. But the goal is to make sure that you ingrain sort of best practices and standards to make sure that there's a clear accountability, clear transparency of what an AI model does, and they should be able to answer it clearly to avoid and address the trust-related concerns with the AI model. So that's also extremely important. Should be definitely for the AI governance program. Okay, I wanted to touch upon. It's not like one way. AI goes both ways. You need a strong governance to run AI programs and solutions. At the same time, AI can also help the governance program. And I'm seeing this becoming more and more popular among software vendors. There are a lot of tools and technologies already started to add some of the AI-enabled components as part of their tools, which I'm super excited to see that. So, for example, I captured a few, but it's not a comprehensive list. But there are a lot of other benefits that AI can provide and support the overall governance programs. For example, AI can capture the metadata of the assets within the organization, and sometimes suggest it or even auto-propagate these definitions, the classifications of data, the tags and the owners of the data. By traversing through the data lineage, AI can process this huge volume of information and then automatically apply some of these contextual metadata to these data sets. That's extremely important when you think about it. If you have a good quality data, properly documented, easy to discover, that's all going to feed into your AI model. and it will help AI model to generate better decisions and solutions. So tools have already being added with this module to try to semi-automate this metadata capture. That's pretty cool to see that. The other bit is the data anomaly. Again, I'm going in the clockwise direction. The other bit is the data anomaly and detection and communication. Again, AI has the capability to process huge volume of data in different components, whether it is a data quality component or data lineage component or data governance or policies. It can, compile the information, process it, and identify some of these actual issues that are happening now. On top of that, it can proactively detect some vulnerabilities. If you continue to go down this way, we're going to have problem in these areas. Those vulnerabilities can be easily detected by these AI components, and that can report to whether the owners of the data or downstream consumers of the data to take some actions or change the business process or methodology and whatnot. So it is pretty cool that it would take years and years for humans to identify certain things that AI can help solve the problem pretty quickly. The other area where AI is shining is the data policies. Again, it can look at the patterns of data, the issues, the structure of the data, and come up with some data policies. Again, data policies are typically drafted by experienced data governance people who clearly understand the value of data, how it gets used in the organization, and they take years to draft these policies and then post it. But AI can just do everything in a very short period of time by analyzing the past issues, present issues, and potential issues to come up with the data policies that can be applied to it. So that's another cool area that AI can, short circuit years and years of effort into practice. The final bit is I would say kind of an nirvana state. I don't see the tools have matured or gotten to the part yet, but I definitely see AI can automate a lot of governance activities, especially the recurring governance activities. And since it's dealing with a huge volume of data, there's only a limited effort or management a governance team can do it, whether it is AI governance or data governance teams. So AI can, short circuit a lot of those things, speed up these efforts, and so you can scale up your organization to much larger proportion with the volume of data that's being processed. So that's something that I'm super excited to hear from some of the vendors that they have it on their roadmap, thinking about it, because that's going to be the future state, in my opinion. Given all this information, where do you start? How do you start the AI governance in your organization? And again, it's a collective effort. It's going to be a strong partnership between executive team, the business champions, and the AI development teams. We need to work together. And I would say, start with a couple of key AI models and solutions that are either being built or implemented in the organization, and document the benefits of AI governance. Some of the things that I've outlined here, but there's so much information is out there in the internet that can help document, why AI governance is important, and partner with a couple of business champions who know the implications of AI and also the business concepts, and again leverage the existing data governance program if it is available, because they've got most of the hooks implemented already, so we should be able to simply extend what they've done, and then start understanding the gaps in the AI solutions that are implemented, and apply the shift left approach, which is very popular among the data scientists or developers, where try to address the problem at the source as much as possible, whether it is documentation, classification of information, assigning ownership, quality scores. Do it at the source as much as possible, so that when the data comes to the AI models, will all be relatively clean and thereby giving a better decision or results. Leverage tools, some of the tools that are available. Again, they're not mature at this point, but they're still the best possible options that we have, and document the results and benefits of the AI governance, and then share it with your executive teams, and have a clear vision for why we need to have this AI governance program, articulate the opportunities and the benefits, and also the cost of not having this program. Again, this is something that should have happened for BA and analytics world back in 2005 and 2010s, but it didn't happen. So we got too far, and then these governance programs started to do too little, too late. So it would be great to start having this AI governance as we are getting this going. And finally, gain executive buy-in. That's going to be extremely important, and funding for AI governance. And once you once you have this thing ingrained as part of your new AI solutions, your organization, it's going to be much better. At least you can address a lot of risks and concerns, trust issues, transparency, legal or compliance issues can all be mitigated, if not fully 100% addressed. But it's just a starting point, in my opinion. So that's how I would go about it. And again, if there are any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. But I'm really glad to be part of this event and sharing my thoughts with you all. Okay, back to you, Neelu.
Thank you, Raghav. That was very interesting, and I'm sure we'll have questions towards the end.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen. So at this point, I'm going to introduce our second speaker, Dave Goyal. So Dave Goyal has over 30 years of experience in industry as a data and AI subject matter expert leading complex technical projects. His team has been assisting healthcare and manufacturing companies to expand and overcome challenges through the utilization of data and artificial intelligence. So we heard from Raghav all about data governance, and now Dave is going to talk about AI and data usage in the healthcare industry, the good and also the bad part of it. So Dave, I'm going to put spotlight on you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everyone. It's a bit early for me. I'm at my mom's house in India, so no coffee yet. So anything comes out of my mouth is probably not true. Well, with that, let me just share my screen. Give me a second.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for doing it all the way from India. I know you're traveling.
No, I'm happy to do it. Raghav set up the right foundation, so I'm very happy to follow after him. I think he projected the things about the data governance and AI governance and how AI can help. I'm always thinking positively about AI, and so some of these examples you'll see about that as well. Let me share my screen. Let me know if it's visible. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So again, thank you, everyone. Thanks for inviting me, Neelu. I'm honored to be in this community and happy to present this. And if needed, I can go through some more examples in the future as well. A little bit about me. Neelu already gave me a very kind introduction there. I'm the founder and owner along with my partner here in LA, Irvine area. And we typically work on healthcare and manufacturing clients. Our teams are dispersed in US, Canada, Philippines, and in India. Been working in AI space for data and AI space, I should say, about 30 years now, and have worked with companies like Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, and Starbucks, to name a few. Been social entrepreneur and also an angel investor in one or two companies at this point. I've also founded a company in Canada called ReadOn.ai. And a little bit background on this. So I grew up a dyslexic kid, and this is a great example of using AI and to solve a problem. And I suffered through during my childhood to being a dyslexic, and we created a very successful product in Canada to solve dyslexia using AI from the kids between 6 years of age to 13 years of age. So that's one of the examples. I have a couple of patents in dyslexia and also in neuroscience space. And I'm currently writing a book on healthcare and AI. So that's a little bit about me. So a segue from what Ragav was presenting, I really see AI as our friend and which can help us take us to the next level. The two industries which I really see AI will provide a lot of value is manufacturing and healthcare. And this session is all about the healthcare. Let me create a laser pointer here so that I can talk through about this. I think why in AI in healthcare is probably obvious because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of unknowns, anomalies that is not addressed by human as we speak. And AI using the past data tremendously help there. The relevance of AI has emerged in as a transformative technology in the healthcare industry. It has the immense potential to drastically change the patient care, especially right medical researches. As an example, COVID. Without having the details of the COVID virus early on, mRNA and these medicines were created long back, and that's how we were able to turn it around faster. And last but not the least, administrative processes where the automation can happen in healthcare industries. Some of the examples and benefits of AI in healthcare is medical imaging analysis, where different types of medical images, such as X-rays, MRI, CT scans, require a higher accuracy of analysis. But then there are patterns in AI that can be filled in to predict more accurately over there. And I'll talk about it through my patent on this. They can detect anomalies, tumors, other clinical findings at a very early stage and can save the life as well. Drug discovery examples, like I mentioned about COVID, personalized treatment plans. Now, this is getting big as we speak today, which can analyze patient data, including genetics. I talked about dyslexia, which is not going into the medical history, but this is really still a problem which AI can solve. But then there are other things like Alzheimer, dementia. There's so many neuro diseases where AI can definitely help to build a personalized treatment plan and provide the better outcomes. One of the biggest advantage of AI is analyzing data very, very quickly, extrapolate and do a risk stratification, predictive analysis. That's where we see a lot of benefit of AI. Natural language processing is another area, and the large language model, which Raghav also mentioned, LLM, which is commonly known as ChatGPT today, that is going to help tremendously on healthcare side as well, along with content generation and other areas. And the biggest of all, which is happening the research is happening for last 20 years, is robotic assisted surgery, where a robot can perform a surgery with precision, and that can take out it is good and bad. The good part is if certain physicians have a shaky hand, or they have been doing this for a long time, there could be human errors which can be minimized through AI. At the same time, if the precision is not tested and programmed properly, and also back to the governance thing that Raghav mentioned, it can be really bad thing. So those both good and bad. These are some of the examples, and I'm going to talk a little more in the next few slides. Let me go to the next one here. So before we get to the AI, and I'll piggyback a lot on Raghav, and I may skip a few things here. Data management hurdles are the most important thing. So AI is, like we used to say, Raghav, back in the days, garbage in, garbage out also. So AI is also using a lot of data, and if it's a bad quality data, you're going to get bad results. So data management hurdles we need to manage. One of the biggest is data silos and fragmentation. Healthcare, as we probably know, their data is scattered around several systems and departments. So there's a lot of data silos that happens. and the integration challenges and accessibility challenges are already there. There's another problem now that is happening. We have EHR systems in place, but for product companies, for different hospitals, they may be managing data through different EHRs and different systems. So interoperability issues also exist, which creates data silo issues. That's one of the issues out of the many. The other one, which Raghav was touching upon, is data privacy and security. Healthcare has a very high standard, rightly so, for data privacy. And AI is no different. Because AI is consuming that data, the data privacy also applies on AI solutions. Uh, Healthcare has, fortunately, a lot of policies in place. Examples, HIPAA, that's Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. They have high cert, they have GDPR in Europe. So there are a lot of things that is already in place. I've seen some people here on cybersecurity, which also applies on the data security here in AI. So that's another hurdle to take care of. Data volume and velocity. Now AI is all about data volume, like the amount of data comes in. It's data hungry. More data is being thrown at to AI, more accuracy you're gonna get. More variety and volume of data is being thrown at, better accuracy you're gonna get. So infrastructure is fortunately grown up from Azure, AWS, IBM Bluemix, and to name a few. And they have strong GPU power where you can process things in flicker of seconds also nowadays. So it's at a high cost today, but it's going to reduce eventually. But data volume and velocity is another hurdle to take over. Data quality and accuracy. I think back in 2010, I've read a magazine where it says 1 out of 2 data projects fails because of data quality and accuracy. And same thing about AI. The examples we were talking about, ChatGPT not able to predict accurately. It's all about that data quality. Right now, it's not governed like Raghav said. And there will be, I imagine there will be versions of ChatGPT or large language model created for different organizations, for different businesses, which is where I think it will be more helpful once we have right ethical setup, right governance setup, and better accuracy on the data quality. That's the other hurdle we're gonna check and fix. Data governance and ethics, we just touched base upon it. We need to have clearly defined data ownership, who can validate and say, this is the right data to fed into the AI. It could be research collaborations, it could be data organizations I could see which will come back in the world, and which will be the right data provider. And when we have more accountability on who owns the data and if the data is accurate or not, it will tremendously help AI. Bias and fairness is one thing which will constantly evolve because it's very subjective. These algorithms are humanized, but not humanized enough to understand the intentions as we were talking about. So that still need to be taken care. But we need to have informed consent on the data. When we are getting the data from patient and other places, that will help reduce the bias and fairness, because then AI is predicting based on what you're feeding that to them and you agree on that data. That's another example. And data retention and disposal, not a big deal now that we have so much of on cloud memory and things like that. But the retention periods and what data is obsolete when we are predicting certain things needs to be taken care of also. So a lot of policies needs to come in place to overcome these data management hurdles. But once we grow in next 5 or 6 or 10 years, I think you will see a lot more accuracy on data, and it will be a friend, not a foe, for sure. Data management strategies, especially in the healthcare industry, as I was speaking about, interoperability and data standardization. So promoting data interoperability for seamless data exchange between different EHRs, different hospitals, different research bodies, different healthcare systems and applications in place. There are already certain things in place. Example is health information exchange like HIE, data formats like HL7 and FHIR. So it's already there, but more needs to come in, and more of these standards and formats will come in. Just like how we've seen the evolution of XML, JSON, and other data formats. Similar things needs to happen in the healthcare industry as well, and that is happening for sure. Creating data dictionaries. There is a clinical data analytics need, which is very high on demand. In the healthcare industry, they have uh, different parameters. Like we have uh, ICD-9, ICD-10. We have diagnostic codes, and so on and so forth. But they are all siloed in their own world. So creating a common data dictionary, and I've seen an organization where they've created something called OMOP, which is a common data model for all healthcare related data jargons. That is also very important. If that's not there, the interpretation of AI will also be wrong. So that's one of the strategy we need to follow, creating a good data dictionary, encouraging EHR integrations, which I just touched upon. So we have too many of them, right? From Epic to Cerner to NextGen to Clinical Works, and they have their own format and things like that. That needs to be standardized so that the data can flow back and forth. Just like for a regular IT world, we have REST APIs, which are very standard in nature. Previously, it used to be SOAP. So we need to have similar standards for EHR integration and data governance, which Raghav has broadly touched upon. Uh, Data security and access control is another area where we need to, fix the data quality issue before feeding into data AI. And master data management is a large topic, so I'm going to skip. And I see some of the experts already here in this group. Leveraging AI for data management. Like I said, data quality is the big issue. So data cleansing and processing is the big step that we need to fix. Out of an AI project, we spend about 50 to 60% time in just data collection, cleansing, and pre-processing. It's even more in some projects. So about 30 to 40% time is only used to build AI model, AI solutions, and testing that. So that's a big bucket we need to work on in this industry. Data integration and operability, I just touched upon. We need to create standards there. This is how we can leverage AI. Data security, a very obvious thing to have in place, irrespective of AI. All data elements need to have the right data security and privacy in place. Data governance, again, Raghav touched upon, so I'm going to skip. Data analytics and insight. Now, I've heard somebody saying that collecting all data is a good thing and doable. It's a back-end thing. So if we put an analogy with the restaurant, a chef can produce the best food in the world, but if it is not presented in the right order, it's not inviting for you to consume that food. Same thing on the data analytics and insight. There's not a lot of focus is being presented here when we talk about AI, but it's a very important subject to take care on, where how to present the AI data, how to get from data to insight to action, and how to make meaningful results out of it, how to prescribe certain things based on that insight that we get. This is one area is interest of my personal interest, and I think this is where the focus of AI industry will go very soon. Automated report and decision support that is happening in AI, and that will keep happening, where you can automate. This is not so much accurate. A good example is Tesla. They've been collecting a lot of data, and their autopilot somewhat works today on freeways and other places. But in complex scenarios, it just cannot make the right decision. So that needs to happen, and that will happen when a car-to-car conversation will be in place. So again, collection of data, putting the data in the right cleanse and right order, and then making a decision out of it is probably how AI can help the data management. we were talking about regulatory and ethical considerations. Fortunately, on healthcare side, there are some which is already available. So we have HIPAA and HICERT and privacy processes in place. We have GDPR in place. I think bias and fairness in algorithm, it is right now very hard to judge. That needs to standardize. I agree on that. Informed consent and patient autonomy. This is one area which most of the companies are now doing it, including OpenAI, ChatGPT. Uh, Data ownership and intellectual property. AI doesn't have a good way today to figure this out. Well, it can go to the patent office, it can go to those places, but what about things which are not patented, which are living on a different website? So a lot of data needs to be fed in to define who owns the data and who has the intellectual property. This one area I see will take a lot of time to develop and have a lot of trust in people. Data retention and de-identification. Now, de-identification is a big thing in healthcare industry where a patient's social security number and other private information need to be de-anonymized or de-identified. AI needs to follow through that. So today I've seen certain companies started to use Azure version of OpenAI, and Azure says that Azure is complying on data retention and de-identification, but OpenAI is not. So a solution creator like us has that responsibility to send the right data to OpenAI. So OpenAI is very helpful for us, but at the same time, we really cannot send non or the patient identified data to that system, and that will create a big havoc. So the ownership lies on the system creator like us also, and that's another area of risk and scare that we need to pay attention to. Moving on. Here are some of the use cases as I was talking about, and I think I touched most of them. One of the things which is happening now and will happen a whole lot is virtual assistants, right? So imagine a lawyer can replicate their another version of lawyer for basic things, where they have to do the basic consent. There's a lot of they have to create a data, by the way. They have to get that out of their brain and put it on paper, on digital data, so that a correct analysis can be done. But virtual assistants in healthcare, like registered assistants who are helping remote patients, lawyers, CPAs. This is where you will see in next 2 to 3 years a lot of development that will happen. Rightly so, because that knowledge base exists today. Robotic surgery, I already said, I'm very excited about that. Uh, uh, Predictive analytics and personalized treatment plan. These are the two areas which is already happening. I do have a patent here in this space. So we have created a patent for migraine in neuroscience, in neurospace, where we can predict the onset of migraine, whether it's a chronic migraine for that person or not. And, what is the extent of that migraine. So you are able to go to that level. The next is, if we can predict migraine, we can kind of predict Alzheimer and some of the other diseases when we collect enough data on it. So I'm very excited about that. This is where it can help human. The other example I gave, dyslexia, where me growing up as a dyslexic kid, there's not much available out there other than that you probably slow in studies and things like that. Now, learning all your cognitive functions, understanding which cognitive function loses, whether it's your hearing, whether it's your listening, whether it's eye gaze, or whether how you're thinking. Once you tune those 3 or 4 cognitive skills, you can kind of get rid of your dyslexia. And we have treated about 1,200 kids as of today very successfully, 100%. So that's very exciting path where you can use AI for these treatments, which is cancer, another example where it can be used to treat people and do an early stage prediction and things like that. So those are the use cases. These are some of the solutions which are happening and will happen today. So one is AI powered data integration platform. Raga was talking about it, like, when you're integrating different data elements, if AI can understand source and target data structures, it can build AI-driven data integration platforms. And companies like Boomi, and there are some others, I think MuleSoft also, have already started creating AI-driven data integration platforms where they can start mapping the data and transformation using AI. They can also automatically link data for lineage. So that's a great example of AI solution for data management. Blockchain for data security and integrity, where especially in healthcare, where you have to create a decentralized ledger of healthcare transaction, which is sitting in a doctor's office or a clinic where there's a lab test is happening. And blockchain can provide a lot of values using the encryptions and private keys, consistency of data as well, and interoperability. NLP, again, this is one of the most talked about since the launch of ChatGPT, which is a transformer model using large language model, LLM. NLP has been there for last 8 to 10 years now. And I think NLP is where people are mostly focusing today. And it will definitely help because there's a lot of data on the internet which can be used to create the right solution using NLP. So that's another solution that will come in. In healthcare, especially NLP uses on clinical notes. So there's a lot of clinical note that just goes like a garbage. And eventually a doctor makes a prediction or prescription. Sometimes he may oversee certain clinical note. With the AI assistance, I would say, not totally depending on AI, a doctor can provide the right analysis, and if he can cross-check and validate if he has missed out something by not reading certain parts of that notes and literature, right? So that's another example. Again, Ragav touched upon AI enhanced data quality management. I'm going to skip. Uh, Federated learning for privacy preserving AI, right? So this is one area, it's very specific, but AI models are learning data from various healthcare institutions without sharing raw data, right? So they are not seeing the right data, but raw data, but they're really seeing the outcomes or the prediction of that data from the physicians and other people. And then they are learning. So this collaborative learning is best of the both worlds, right? It will preserve the privacy. So doctor doesn't have to expose what was the raw data, but really it will depend on what was the outcome. Now, again, if their outcomes are wrong, the AI will make a wrong prediction as well. So it will save the data privacy, but because the transparency is gone, accuracy can be up for debate. But that's an example that can be used. AI-driven predictive analytics is the most common in every industry. For healthcare, there are AI models which predict patient risk scores, and it also predicts the target interventions, like I was talking about ReadOn, which is a dyslexia-based product. So you can do a risk stratification and understand how AI can help, and AI helps you to take the right decisions and cure the disease as needed. And it creates a decision support system for clinicians. Let me move on to the next slide here. So these are some of the past examples on what was happening in AI. How do we maximize success with AI? AI is only helpful when we use a lot of data. AI is only helpful when we have this interdisciplinary collaboration between different systems, between different practices in the world. I know there's a lot of need for governance and regulation, but sharing data is not a bad thing. As long as systems are created with that goodwill and the good intention of helping mankind to take faster decisions, cure certain diseases, and get to the next level. Continuous education and training is another area where, especially for, this is mainly applicable for manufacturing industries more than healthcare, and healthcare also, where certain knowledge gaps are being exposed by the decision making of certain assistants and individuals. And AI should start predicting what education and training they should start taking so that their knowledge gaps can be filled in. This is a great area to make use of AI. The real world validation and testing. Yeah, validation is mostly either through humans or through some systems by doing a stress test and other things. But then there are other qualitative measures which AI can use and make use of. Data governance and compliance, we talked about it. Human-centric AI integration. Now, we were talking about Hollywood writers and some of the other content writers, and their job is at risk. I humbly differ with that. I came from India when, in my grandparents' time, where they had these horse carriages, and they have, and the taxis come into the place, and their job went on a risk. Now these guys have to update themselves to start driving taxis or go out of the job or the work. So that always happens. But when you start using, just like you started using an auto to drive it faster, when a content writer, like a marketing content writer or a movie content writer, when they'll start using AI, and not just copy paste AI, but really make an intelligent use of the content and start producing results, they can do things a lot faster. I truly believe on that. So human centric AI integrations are highly, highly important and needed to grow faster in this era. And that will happen, believe it or not. Scalability and infrastructure readiness, where systems are not performing up to the mark, and AI can predict rightly to scale up the system or scale down the system on the cloud as quickly as possible. So these are some of the examples where we can make use of AI to maximize our success. Finally, this is the last slide I have. Precision medicine advancements. I already talked about an example of dyslexia and also migraine here. AI-enabled drug discovery, we have seen examples during COVID days, and this will keep happening. We will have more viruses, and we need to work faster to get better drugs and discoveries for it. Medical imaging is also a right example. It takes a lot of time to collect a lot of blood work, CT scans and other things, and then come to the conclusion. AI can create a report for a physician, which can be taken as is or modified, and the results or the speed to deliver results to a patient will be much faster, especially in the urgent care and emergency situations. Population health management is one area where AI can help tremendously, where, a large, like India, South Africa, a lot of people have common diseases. South Africa and India had malaria. India doesn't have malaria that much, but South Africa, as an example, bad water and diseases due to water. This is where a lot of automation is possible through AI to give you the right medicine. 90% of the cases, you probably will get to the same medicine with the same examples, and the anomaly can be left out of AI. AI-driven virtual assistant, like I said, for lawyers, for CPAs, for even executives having an EA and others that can be AI-driven also. Robotic surgery, I see this is the biggest help using AI. And last but not the least, workforce support for AI, where their training is not enough, and people keep swapping in a particular clinic or a community health organization, where faster, consistent training through large language model is possible to make use of AI. So these are some of the exciting areas where we can make use of AI. With that, I'll hand it over to Neelu. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Neelu and AITP. I love to be here.
Thank you, Dave. That was so interesting. And it's eye-opening, like how already AI is being used in the healthcare industry. My friend was telling me that she was at a doctor's office, and there was AI taking all the clinical notes for the doctor, so that doctor can spend looking at the patient, and then doctor can review the notes and approve the notes.
Yeah, and especially in some cases, they can make big human blunders and mistakes where AI can kind of stop them or at least warn them, right?
Right, that's so true. So I'm going to open up for questions. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Any questions?
Yeah, and we can definitely answer. I'm happy to have one-on-one, talk or conversation on this. Also, I can pull in a couple of our data scientists if you have a use case or if you want to learn more on what is happening on AI, both in two areas: AI in manufacturing and healthcare, or otherwise also. Happy to do it later.
Yeah. So I have a question. If someone is like, or some company is starting out with like AI implementation based on their data set, what
Mhm.
are the things that they should be watching out for so that it doesn't result like in a bad implementation?
Sure. So, and I can answer a little bit and then I'll let Raghav answer because a lot more of that relies on what he has been doing. For AI, just like data, it's still garbage in, garbage out. So, knowing the data sources, where it is coming from, can you depend on that data? Is that data accurate? All that pre work needs to be done. That's one. And then AI is mostly hypothesis, just like the scientists do an hypothesis. So what end results or outcome you're trying to get? A lot of times people think AI as a magic wand, which it's not. We need to know the inputs, the quality of the inputs and the outcomes, right? When we know that two things clearly, this is one thing we check when we go into a project. A lot of times people want to use an AI and they have no data. And we are saying, what do we predict now? How do we really predict? So those are some of the gotchas we need to watch for. Uh, and that's what I can think of. Raghav, over to you.
I think you touched upon important points. So the business value needs to be identified and articulated, whether you're improving customer experience, optimizing your operations, or reducing costs, or increasing revenue, whatever your business goals are, that needs to be clearly articulated. And that should drive, going back to what Dave mentioned, do we have supporting data to build an AI model to accomplish that objective, keeping in mind that your data is not going to be complete, it's not going to be of high quality, but at least you can start somewhere, and it could be internal or external data. So having those things, having a good idea, do a prototype, don't worry about failing it, because I've seen many companies starting in AI projects or solutions only to fail a couple of times before they perfect it. So it takes a while to get to where you want to be. So you got to have the patience and willingness to invest in more into AI projects, and continue to fine tune it. Just you're not going to get the result. Even if you get the result, it's going to be like 10% errors or 20% errors on day one. So all these things need to be kept in consideration while building the successful AI project.
Right, that's so true. We have another question from Vivek. So he is saying AI in healthcare. Recent studies have issued controversial results, often due to their funding sources. How can AI help to maintain standards in study results?
Great question. And same answer, unfortunately, or fortunately, which is garbage in, garbage out. So the data is being fed in. Before I answer that, let me go back to ChatGPT, more relatable, right? So ChatGPT, these data elements is called features in AI. And I can blame it on my dyslexia, but I think I may be wrong on the number, but I think it's like about 48 trillion features that has been fed into ChatGPT up to the year 2021, right? And it has so much data fed in, still the accuracy on certain cases, we don't trust on it. Same thing on the healthcare part, right? Where we are capturing these studies, feeding the data back to the healthcare AI models and getting the prediction. There are tools and technologies in place, by the way, which can tell you whether this prediction is more accurate or not accurate by training the model constantly. It's like a continuous improvement. So the ideal answer is the model needs to be constantly tested. And just like what Tesla is doing, right? They've been throwing the car at the road. Unfortunately, people are at risk, right? And there could be accidents that could happen. But that's unfortunately the only way for them to test a lot of data, how a particular human get engaged on the road and other cars and other things. And then the prediction comes out more and more and more accurate. So because it's an extrapolation, right? With the data that you feed into the system, is the answer will be based on that. It will be more humanized, more qualitative, not just quantitative. But the accuracy of data is where we need to have the focus. Raghav, do you have any insight on that?
Raghav, I
You're
think
on
you're on
mute,
mute.
Raghav.
No, I think you're spot on that. The going back to what Vivek asked, it's about the quality of incoming data. And if there are issues with that, if the findings are not accurate, if it's not put into context, AI can obviously decipher it, in an inaccurate way and then provide inaccurate results. So that needs to be kept in mind.
Thank you. Roger, you had a question. Do you want to talk about your question? I think you're on mute, Roger.
Mute. Okay. I put it in the chat. Basically, Dave was describing the benefits of having AI interpreting medical imaging, like in an emergency room situation, which seems great. I guess my question is, if we, each of those, each of them is going to be a product that's developed by a certain company that a hospital will purchase or whatever. And it seems like we'd want some kind of industry-wide standards, beyond just the QA of the company that's providing the product. Do you have any thoughts about that and how that might happen?
Agreed 100%, Roger. But if you take AI out of the equation today, also, just like any other product in the healthcare industry, urgent care, we even work with Orange County Fire Authority, so they deal with emergency management systems. Same problem exists there also, right? The accuracy of those systems and the testing and integration in those setups is highly important. So one needs to, there's no standard in place. I think this is where you are alluding towards. If there are standards in place, I think that's much better, where we can validate against those standards. Unfortunately, there's no standard. So that ethical thing goes back to those companies who are creating the products. Unfortunately, to create the products which works in those setups, they have done a lot of testing using that kind of data. And the accuracy is transparent, like 80%, 90%, 95%, whatever that number would be. That disclaimer, ethical fairness and biasness needs to be really transparent, and the correct data set needs to be tested. I don't know if I answer your question, but that's what I think.
Okay, yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, I know it seems like with the current processes, they do an MRI or whatever, and then it goes to a doctor who's qualified to interpret them. And there is a delay, but there's also a lot of variation. I'm sure there is a lot of variation between how those results are interpreted. So the AI would be
True.
a benefit if it's at least partially offers some automation to identify maybe the half a dozen main things that one would expect to identify, and then have someone who's qualified to use that as a supplement to their own review. That'd be great.
Yeah, and back to your point, I was refraining myself to going into the technical terms, but in this case, I'll use that. So AI has this thing called supervised learning. There are two ways AI can learn: supervised and unsupervised. And along with supervised learning, there's this thing called feedback loop. What I'm saying, just like Tesla analogy here, it'll be painful for those doctors, right? But the AI system needs to be installed. They need to see the results, and they need to provide feedback on where it's not accurate and where it's accurate, so that AI can go back and start learning. The advantage that they will get, or the organization will get, is eventually this feedback loop will make the results more accurate, so that people can start relying a lot more on it. So that's the process, right? It needs to be deployed in the real life scenarios by using the feedback from the experts. Those are on spot and doing their own things. Hope
Raghav,
that
you want
makes
to
sense.
add anything to it?
No, I think he pretty much answered the question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. That was a great question.
So I know like both like Raghav and Dave, you both mentioned, right? There are like multiple tools available, like if someone wants to get started. So where should they go and like look for those tools? Maybe Raghav, like you can answer that question.
In terms of implementation or in terms of even thinking about it,
Thinking about it and then the implementation part of it, right? Where's the place to start?
yeah, well, the best place to start is to educate the internal employees if they're going to be doing it, or if you're going to be relying on third-party consultants. I think bringing someone who's been there, done that, instead of spending more energy and time in directly starting with the tool, I think starting with the quality team members, internal or external, would be my suggestion, and then think about what technology or tools might be. I mean, there are several ways you can write an AI model, but I think starting with the right team, qualified, knowledgeable resources would be a best place to start.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for our speakers? Okay. So we will be sharing this presentation on our AITP website. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to them. I'm going to go to our next slide. So I'm going to invite Jay Carvin, who's co-chair for our programs, to talk about our upcoming events.
Thanks, Nilu. All right, so we've got a couple events coming up, and thank you guys for attending this one. In August, we're going to be focusing on privacy. So our topic for that will be Privacy Matters, Navigating Compliance in the Digital Age. That's going to be a virtual event, followed by an event in September. This is an exciting one with Peter Coffey, which is also a virtual event where he'll be exploring the predictions of IT. So I know that's always been, I think, annually one of the biggest events that AITP hosts, and he's an exciting speaker to watch. And then we have an in-person event coming in October where we bring together CTOs for a panel. We call this CTO Insights. And so the panel will discuss technology trends and innovations. And if you guys want to stay up to date with events and see what's going on, feel free to sign up for notifications on the website. What I'll do here is make it easy for you to click the link. I put it in the chat here. So if you want to quickly join our newsletter, feel free to click there and jump in. And then last but not least, I think, Nilu, you want to go to the next slide? Is take our survey. So let us know how we did on this event. It helps us shape our future events, and it takes maybe a few seconds to, I think there's only 5 questions. So if you get a moment, you can either, use your camera and look at the QR code here, or follow the link that Nilu provided in the chat on the side. And I think that's it, Nilu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jay. So at this point, I want to thank our speakers, Dave, Goel, and Raghav, for coming to this event and speak about data. And I also want to thank all the attendees for staying and listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Nilu, for the opportunity.
All right.
Thank you, Nilu. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.